She was still there, still sitting next to you on the sofa, still offering a polite smile when you told a trivial story, still saying a routine goodnight like an old habit. But somehow, she was no longer with you. Her words grew shorter. The phone was always face down. You caught a glimpse of a smile, but it wasn't for you. And every time you asked, "Is something wrong?" she would simply shake her head. Nothing at all. But you could feel it. Deep inside, something was slipping through your fingers. Not evidence, not outright betrayal, just a quiet shift, and your intuition was speaking. This piece isn't written to provoke doubt or plant suspicion. It's not for the skeptical. It's for the man who once loved sincerely, who now stands before a truth slowly revealing itself and no longer wants to lie to himself. Because when a woman begins to change, she doesn't vanish overnight. She leaves traces, small, quiet, but unmistakable. If you're awake enough to see, and if you've ever found yourself in those moments, when she's physically close, but her presence feels miles away, then you are exactly where you need to be. Sign 1, fading presence. She's there, but no longer present. Everything begins with the smallest shifts. She still sits beside you, but the look in her eyes is no longer searching for yours. She still replies to your words, but each syllable feels like a task she has to fulfill. She still smiles, but that smile no longer touches you the way it used to. The presence of a person isn't just about physical proximity. It's about the energy they bring into the space between you. And if you've ever sat next to the woman you love and felt the distance between you stretch wider, even though she's only inches away, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Try to remember, back then whenever you walked into the room, her eyes would instantly seek yours. She'd ask, "How was your day?" And she would truly care about your answer. Even your most mundane comments would make her laugh, prompt her to touch your arm gently, or inspire her to share a little story from her own day, just to keep the conversation flowing between you. Now all of that is gone. She still sits there, but her gaze is glued to her phone. You ask her something, she answers, but doesn't bother to look up. You try to crack a joke, she doesn't even flinch. This shift doesn't come like a storm. It's quiet, soft even, like a subtle breeze changing direction. But if you're willing to stop and feel it, it's cold enough to make your skin crawl. Most men don't want to believe in this kind of sign. We explain it away. She's probably just tired. Work might be stressing her out. Maybe she just needs a little time to herself. And yes, sometimes that's all it is. But not always. Sometimes this is the first gentle warning that her heart is quietly packing its bags. A woman doesn't need to utter the words, "I'm leaving to walk away from you." All she has to do is withdraw her gaze, tune out your voice, and disappear from the shared world you once built together. So what should you do? Not run after her silence. Not try to become the clown just to make her smile again. Not shrink yourself hoping to win back her attention with an old trick that once worked. A wise man. He stops. He observes, and he holds on to the foundation of his own worth. Because if this shift is only temporary, born of fatigue or pressure, she'll find her way back. But if this is a true retreat, you won't need to chase it to know, and you won't want to. A calm, grounded man will always see more clearly in silence than in a confrontation full of desperate words. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is stop trying to be noticed and start asking yourself, what is this silence trying to tell me? Sign 2. When she gets defensive over simple questions, you ask her gently, were you just texting someone? And instead of a straightforward answer, you get a sharp glance. Why do you always have to be so suspicious? Am I not allowed to talk to anyone now? Are you trying to control me, or what? And just like that, the energy flips. You're no longer just asking a small, innocent question. Suddenly, you've become the bad guy, the insecure one, the jealous one, maybe even the toxic one. But let's be honest with each other here. You weren't interrogating her. You weren't accusing her. You just asked. The way people in love ask when something feels off. You asked because you care, because you've sensed a shift, because you want to understand, not investigate. But instead of calmly explaining or sharing, she throws up a wall. Her words aren't just answers. They're a shield designed to stop you from stepping any closer, to keep you behind the line of don't ask. Sound familiar? You ask, who were you with last night? She snaps, so now you don't trust me. You ask, why didn't you reply to my message at 10? She retorts, are you tracking every minute of my life now? Instead of responding, she deflects. Instead of listening, She makes you feel guilty, and slowly you begin to doubt yourself. Am I overreacting? Maybe I'm just being too sensitive. Perhaps I should just keep quiet next time. But stop for a moment. Someone who loves you, someone with nothing to hide, won't avoid questions. They won't wield sharp words to cut off what could have been a moment of connection. One of the clearest signs that someone is hiding something isn't silence. It's resistance when you start getting close to the truth. You don't need a confession. You don't need her to admit anything. Just watch her reaction, and you'll know if you're facing a closed door or a woman still willing to let you in. So what should you do? Don't argue. Don't throw evidence in her face. And, above all, don't lower yourself just to keep the peace. A seasoned man doesn't beg for the truth from someone unwilling to share it. He simply observes and remembers. If a simple question sets her off, then maybe that question touched a place she didn't want you to see. And a wise man doesn't try to force open a door that's already closing. He just steps back, stands quietly outside, and asks himself, that door, it used to open for someone for something. Who was it for? And why did it shut for me? Sign 3. When her phone becomes off limits. There was a time when her phone used to lie freely on the table, screen facing up, notifications glowing openly. She'd even hand it to you to show a funny message or share amusing conversations she had with her friends. But now everything feels different. The screen is always face down. The phone follows her everywhere like a shadow, into the bathroom, onto the bed, even when she steps away from the couch for just a moment. Notifications are off. The password has changed, and whenever you so much as move it aside just to clear the space, you can feel it, that subtle jolt in her body, like she's been caught off guard. You don't need to snoop. She doesn't have to hide a specific message. Just look at the way she treats her phone, and you'll know something's shifted. A phone is just a tool. But when someone begins to conceal, that tool becomes a refuge and a container for secrets. You ask, are you hiding something? She scoffs, wow, here we go again with the suspicion. Then everything carries on as if nothing happened. But you remember how she used to hand you her phone mid-text, how she'd video call friends with you sitting next to her, how she once asked you to unlock it for her when her hands were full. And now, you don't even know when the password changed. In a healthy relationship, no one should have to control the other. But trust should never be traded for secrecy. Privacy is different from intentional concealment. A woman has every right to keep things for herself. But when she no longer shares anything with you, not even the smallest things, that's when the bond between you has started to crack. You don't need to dig through her messages. You don't need to demand access to everything. And you absolutely shouldn't let suspicion become a leash. You just need to observe how she reacts when you get too close to that small glowing world. If she hides everything, if she pulls away from the old habits, if she starts building walls, then understand, the issue isn't the phone, it's the growing space between two souls. So, what should you do? No checking, no guilt tripping, no pleading. Just take a step back, stay calm, and ask yourself, the woman who once welcomed me into her private world, what is she keeping behind that curtain now? And why am I no longer allowed to see it? A man who knows himself doesn't dig for the truth by force. He waits not out of weakness, but because he wants to see whether truth will flow out on its own, just like love once did, soft and effortless. Sign 4. When expressing your feelings turns you into the problem. You sit down, trying to speak gently. Lately, you don't talk to me as much. Is something wrong? She turns to look at you, her expression as if you've just said something absurd. There you go again. I'm just tired, that's all. Or worse. Why do you always have to complicate everything? You didn't accuse her. You didn't raise your voice. You simply tried to name a feeling, something real. That something between the two of you feels different now. But instead of listening, she casts you into a role. You become the overthinker, the needy one, the one who finds problems where there are none. This is not understanding. It's a subtle role reversal, where the one who feels hurt becomes the one who is blamed. And the most dangerous part, if you hear it enough, you might start believing it. You begin to think, maybe I'm being too sensitive. Better not bring it up again. Men shouldn't talk about this kind of stuff anyway. But you forget, being a strong man doesn't mean silencing your truth. It means having the courage to speak what's real. And the truth is, a healthy relationship never forces you into silence just to keep the peace. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you had to rehearse your words? before even opening your mouth to your partner. Have you ever felt like you were walking on eggshells, afraid that even a harmless question could crack everything? If the answer is yes, then it's not because you're too sensitive. It's because you're in a relationship that's slowly turning into an emotional maze. When a woman no longer wants to explain, no longer wants to listen, no longer wants to meet you halfway in conversation, she may start painting you as the difficult one, just to avoid facing her own withdrawal. So what should you do? Don't argue. Don't beg. Don't try to convince her of your emotional logic. You don't need to justify your feelings. They're real, and that's enough. Just observe. If every time you open your heart, she turns away, maybe you're no longer the person she wants to open up to. And what hurts more than being challenged is being made to feel like you shouldn't say anything at all. A conscious man doesn't let his self-respect erode under a silence dressed up as peace. He doesn't respond with anger, but with a deliberate kind of distance. And sometimes that distance isn't to punish her. It's to remind himself he deserves a relationship where his emotions are heard, not dismissed. Sign 5 when jokes no longer feel harmless. You say something small, maybe a story about work, or a dream you've been quietly nurturing, and she looks at you, smirks slightly, and says, "Sounds big for someone who's still figuring himself out." She chuckles lightly, but inside you something cracks. You wonder she's just joking. Right, but the laugh doesn't reach you. Not because you lack a sense of humor, but because that smile no longer carries the tenderness of someone who once loved you. That's the difference. Once upon a time, she teased you with warmth. "You're the cutest old man I know." Or you talk in circles like Socrates. You'd laugh. She'd laugh. There was a softness between you even in the teasing. But now her words feel like velvet-wrapped knives. No shouting. No harsh insults. Just tiny needles, quietly sinking into your skin. That's what contempt looks like. When it wears the mask of humor. And when respect begins to fade, it doesn't always storm out. Sometimes it slips away quietly, hidden in words that sound playful but feel sharp. If you point it out, she might say, "Oh my God, you're so sensitive. It's just a joke. Can't you take one?" That phrase, it's a trap. Because if you stay silent, you swallow the hurt. But if you react, you're the one who can't take a joke. And so you get trapped in this game of half-truths, where the only one bleeding is you. Let's be honest. A woman who loves you doesn't wear you down with sharp words. Even when she teases, there's gentleness underneath. Even when she says something hard, there's kindness behind it. But if she begins making you feel small, inadequate, clumsy, through carefully veiled comments, then respect may already be slipping away. And once love loses respect, it won't take long before it turns into subtle forms of devaluation. So what should you do? Don't bite back. Don't mock her in return. Don't try to outwit her just to prove a point. Just hold your ground and ask a simple question. Was that meant to make you smile or to make me feel small? A woman who still cares for you will pause when she hears that. But if she laughs it off and changes the subject without a thought, you already have your answer. A man with self-respect doesn't stay where words cut, even when those cuts come with a smile. Sign 6 when the shared future becomes a distant thought. There was a time when you talked about everything. A summer trip together, a small house with flowers blooming on the front porch, even a little dog named after that funny nickname you gave her. The future was something you painted together, like two children coloring the same picture one brush at a time. But now, whenever you ask about something just a few months ahead, her response is always the same. "We'll see. I haven't really thought about it." Or worse, silence. No more us. Just vague words like maybe sometimes later. And, those are the words people use when they're quietly stepping back from a dream once held together. Try to recall, when a woman truly wants to be with you, she naturally includes you in her vision of tomorrow, not in grand declarations. Not in heavy promises, just in the little things. Let's go there together someday. Imagine if we lived by the ocean one day. You didn't need to ask. You were already in her dreams. But now, you feel like you're the only one still holding the map for a journey that was supposed to be shared. And that's not random. It's a sign, a quiet one, but real. You'll hear people try to soften the truth. Maybe she's just busy. Maybe she doesn't like planning ahead. You know how women are unpredictable. But deep down, you know she wasn't always this distant. She used to care a lot. And when someone who used to be full of fire starts to pull back without explanation. That silence speaks. Because when someone stops picturing you in their future, they also stop walking with you in the present. So, what should you do? Don't force it. Don't guilt her. Don't remind her of all the plans you once made. Instead, ask yourself in stillness, when was the last time she said we or us about something ahead? If it's been a while, chances are you've already faded from the picture in her mind, long before she ever says the words goodbye. And a man who is clear-eyed and grounded doesn't wait for someone to sketch him back into a future he's no longer part of. He simply looks at the present and lets it tell him whether it's time to keep walking or time to turn. Sign 7, when she's changing to be more attractive, but not for you. One morning, you see her standing in front of the mirror a little longer than usual. Her hair's different, a new perfume, a dress you've never seen before, one she never wore when going out with you. You gently say, "You look different today." She smiles faintly. "I just felt like changing things up." At first glance, nothing seems wrong. Everyone wants to feel renewed. Everyone deserves to love themselves more. But then you start noticing something else. These changes, they no longer include you. She's buying new clothes, but no longer asking for your opinion. She's going to the gym, but never inviting you to join. She's taking selfies, editing them, posting them with cryptic captions on social media. And you, someone who once belonged in that world, are now just a viewer from the outside. This isn't about blaming her for wanting to feel beautiful. It's not about telling women not to live for themselves. But let me ask you this. Has her transformation become something you no longer walk alongside? Has it turned into a stage where you're no longer part of the cast? Back then, when she bought a new dress, she'd spin around and ask, "Do you think this looks good on me?" Now she just puts it on and walks out the door without even checking if you noticed. Not every change is suspicious, but changes with intention that purposely leave you out. They speak volumes even if no words are spoken. Maybe she's not dressing up for someone in particular. Maybe she's simply reclaiming herself. But if you feel unseen, unheard, and uninvolved in the process, the two is a kind of departure. When a woman is preparing to step out of a relationship, she rarely announces it. She simply begins to walk away. One new hairstyle, one new routine, one new image at a time. And before you know it, you're left behind, surrounded by memories that no longer have a place in her present. So what should you do? Don't demand "who are you dressing up for?" Don't mock, "Wow, getting all dolled up, who's the lucky guy?" Don't chase after her or try to upgrade yourself just to keep up. A man who is awake doesn't compete to be seen. He asks himself honestly, in her journey of becoming, am I still her companion or just a spectator? And if the answer is, I'm not sure, then maybe this is the very moment you need to return to yourself. More than ever before. Sign 8, when nightfall becomes a distance you can no longer cross. There was a time when night brought the two of you closer. No more work, no more phones, just soft whispers, quiet laughter before sleep, or a simple message. "Good night. I'm tired, but I thought of you before drifting off." Now it's different. You send her a quiet goodnight at 9 p.m., but there's no reply. You see that she's still online, still watching stories, still engaging with the world out there. It's just, you're no longer part of that priority. She doesn't call before bed anymore. She doesn't tell you where she went today, who she saw, or whether the day made her smile or sigh. The old habits, those unspoken threads that used to tether you to one another, they've vanished as if they were never there at all. You try to reassure yourself. Maybe she's just tired. She probably needs some quiet time. Maybe she'll reach out tomorrow. But night after night, the silence continues, and slowly you begin to feel that she's falling asleep in a world you're no longer allowed to enter. The painful truth isn't silence itself. It's intentional silence, when someone still talks to everyone else, but chooses not to talk to you. The later it gets, the more honest people tend to be. And if every night ends with you talking to a black screen, watching a message that says "seen," but nothing more, that isn't accidental. That's a message in itself. A woman who still loves you won't let you end your day in confusion. She won't leave you lying in the dark, wondering, is she still thinking about me? And when the final connection of the day disappears, so does the most basic need in any relationship, being present in each other's lives. So, what should you do? Don't send 3 more texts just to be noticed. Don't repeat what she no longer responds to. Don't strain yourself trying to hold on to what's already slipping away. A man who knows his worth doesn't measure love by the number of messages. He looks at the silence and understands. Someone who truly wants to stay connected would never let you go to sleep, wrapped in uncertainty every night. And if she lets you drift off again and again, into quiet nights filled with nothing but unanswered space, then maybe it's time to wake up. Before your heart falls asleep, in a relationship that's become only a shadow, sign 9 when your success no longer brings her joy. You just signed a big contract. Finally hit that goal you'd been chasing for months. Or maybe you've simply made it through a difficult chapter, and the first person you want to share it with is her. You walk in light in your eyes, heart full, and tell her the good news, but all she gives you is a shrug. Oh, that's good. Or worse. Did you already celebrate with your coworkers? Then she looks back at her phone, not once meeting your gaze. Something inside you drops, even though on the surface she's still smiling, still being polite. But it's not the same. There was a time when your wins made her eyes light up more than yours. She would throw her arms around you and say, "I'm so proud of you." She'd celebrate with you, as if it were her own victory too. But now, your success feels like a memo, not a shared moment. People will try to comfort you. Women don't always get excited about things like that. Maybe she's not into the details. Maybe she's just busy. But you know better. She used to care deeply. And when someone who once cheered for you starts to respond with cold distance, the change means something. She doesn't need to throw confetti every time you win. She doesn't need to throw a party. But if the woman by your side no longer shares your joy, even just a little, then the real question becomes, is she still beside you emotionally? Love isn't just tested in sadness. It's revealed in celebration too. A true partner will celebrate you, not because it benefits her, but because your happiness matters to her. So, what should you do? Don't beg her to be more excited. Don't lash out, "You never support me." Don't tell the story 3 times hoping for a reaction. Just notice if every step forward you take is met with indifference. If your achievements start to feel like background noise, then maybe she's no longer walking beside you, just standing next to you. And a man who values himself will never shrink his joy to fit into a space that no longer celebrates his growth. Sign 10. When indifference becomes the clearest answer, it's not the yelling, it's not the fights, it's not even betrayal. What slowly kills a relationship is often just this indifference. She no longer gets upset when you come home late. She doesn't flinch when you chat with another woman. She doesn't ask, "Where were you?" or "What time will you be back?" She doesn't even notice when you're tired, when you're quiet, when something in you begins to fade. She doesn't need to say, "I don't love you anymore," because in all the things she no longer does, those are silent goodbyes. Once upon a time, if you were quiet for too long, she would ask right away, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Now, you can sit for hours without a word, and nothing happens. You could disappear for a day, and no one checks in. Something has gone cold, not on the surface, but deep beneath the skin. You still have someone next to you. You still eat together, sleep in the same bed, go through the motions, like 2 strangers playing the roles of lovers. And you start to wonder, is there anything more painful than being physically present, yet completely invisible to the one who once loved you the most? People think relationships end with shouting, with tears, with a dramatic goodbye. But the truth is, some relationships end quietly. They dissolve in long, slow stretches of indifference. She doesn't fight, doesn't argue, doesn't offer advice, doesn't try, because she's already emptied out emotionally. And when someone stops caring, there is no gesture strong enough to move their heart again. So, what should you do? Don't try to shake her awake. Don't beg. Don't turn yourself into a more lovable version just to get her to notice you again. Instead, stand up. Not to walk away just yet, but to look in the mirror and ask, am I holding on to a person or just a fading image? A man who knows his worth doesn't stay in long silent punishment, waiting for scraps of affection. He chooses clarity over a relationship with no voice left, because indifference, even without cruelty, is still an answer, and sometimes it's the only answer you need to stop waiting and start living again. Closing when you're clear-eyed enough to let go. Not every sign in this entire piece is a verdict. Not every small change is a sentence of guilt. But if you've read this far, then maybe deep inside your heart, you've already felt something is no longer right. And that feeling, it doesn't come from jealousy. It doesn't come from fear of being betrayed. It comes from the intuition of a man who knows he's slowly losing his place in the heart of the woman he loves. You don't need to catch her red-handed. You don't need a long, exhausting conversation to figure out who's right, who's wrong. You don't need to force things to the breaking point just to hear her say it out loud. You only need one thing: the clarity to see and the strength to stop holding on. Because love, if it needs to be held together by suspicion, by decoding every glance, every word, every long silence, then maybe that love no longer lives here. A wise man doesn't cling to what's grown cold. He doesn't trade away his dignity just to be pitied for a few more days. He doesn't walk against his own intuition just to pretend everything's still fine. If you've seen these signs, don't explode. Don't beg. Just stand up and walk away with calm. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to leave a place where your heart is no longer welcomed. And remember this: you don't need to be held onto. You deserve to be respected. You don't need to win some tug-of-war. You only need to keep the grounded man within you and walk without looking back. If you see yourself in any of this, subscribe to Light of Wise Elders. Here we don't avoid the truth. We learn to walk through it with calm and with self-respect.